Hello and welcome to another tarot reading with Erin. My name's Erin and it is an absolute pleasure to have you again today for another beautiful tarot reading using these cards against humanity. Now, I really enjoyed the last reading that I did. I don't know about you, but I found the answers really resonated strongly with me. And I felt the need to do that again. They were just calling me. So let's get started, shall we? Now I'm just going to start with lighting a candle, setting an intention. So what do you want to get out of this reading? What are the pressing questions that you'd like to figure out answers to? And as I found with the last reading and with any reading that I do with these cards, I just get the most profound answers to all the pressing questions, and especially the times that we're going through at the moment, how needed this is. Getting some questions in all that uncertainty. So I'm going to light a candle just to represent the intention and the commencement of the tarot reading. Seeking our guardian angels, our ancestors, and just telling the universe we're dropping by and wanting a few answers. This is a beautiful vanilla candle from a boutique called IKEA, and it really has the most beautiful vanilla scent. It's honestly gorgeous. So that's just going to be sitting up there, lighting the way in the darkness that we're all collectively experiencing at the moment. So I have run out of sage, so I just use basil with these cards. I have basiled them. So they are cleansed, they're ready to go, and here we go. So a little bit different from last time. We did a 4-card reading last time. Now we are going to do a 3-card reading, as I said, past, present, and future. So getting out our black cards. Just popping them there. They're our question cards. And then we've got our answer cards. So I'm just asking the universe where I should go, because there are quite a few answer cards. So let's just pop in the middle here. Okay, beautiful. Okay, just pop that off to the side. So I'm just going to shuffle these cards. Again, we're looking at past, present, and future. So, what your past self is reflected in these cards, your present self, and what do we need to know for the future to keep us emotionally, physically, and spiritually safe. Especially at this time, we need some answers. And sometimes we don't get that from ourselves, from our friends, our family. We need that from another source, the original source. Okay. Now for the white cards, our answer cards. Oops. Not too good at shuffling. Okay, here we go. Oops. So we've got our piles. Here we go. So this is past self. What is Batman's guilty pleasure? Okay, interesting. Present self. When I am President of the United States, I will create the Department of blank. Okay, so far we've already got a theme of sort of public figures. So Batman, obviously a prominent superhero, and then also the President of the United States, also a prominent position, one could say. Okay, so future self. I'm sorry, Professor, but I couldn't complete my homework because of blank. Right. Okay, so now for the most important part, I'll pop those black cards away. What is Batman's guilty pleasure? Actually taking candy from a baby. Right. Okay. When I'm President of the United States, I will create the Department of firing a rifle into the air while balls deep in a squealing hog. Oh gosh, wow. That's a pretty powerful card. Don't get this one a lot, but it has a lot of meaning when it does come up. I'm sorry, Professor. Sorry, this is future self. I'm sorry, Professor, but I couldn't complete my homework because of blank. Edible underpants. Right, okay. I'm just going to take a quick minute to process this, but I'm already seeing some trends come up. Oh, we can talk about. Okay, so for our past self. So guilty pleasures. We're talking about the hedonistic lifestyle that we may or may not have had in the past. And at this time where you were partaking in a pleasurable activity or a hedonistic activity, you had a position of power. That can be relative, but this is represented by Batman. And what's ironic is that, and Batman represents all the good in the world. He is a very moral, or supposedly moral figure in the superhero world. He has a strong moral compass. And perhaps you've had a strong moral compass, but you've been tempted by guilty pleasures, something that we like to indulge in that we perhaps don't like to tell or broadcast to everybody. So actually taking candy from a baby. So what I take this to mean is that you've been in a position of power and you've abused that power. So it's sort of this is the phrase that says, you know, the lowest form of abuse of power, basically taking candy from a baby. What could be more morally reprehensible? So what I'm seeing that, as I said, you've been in a position of power and you've abused that power. You've perhaps and perhaps that person, or you know, in that situation, the other person was quite innocent and didn't deserve that. And perhaps I'm not sure when this happened. I am sensing that this was your past. It is in the past, but this current life, not your previous lives. I do sense that perhaps there is some guilt around that. Perhaps the way that you've treated this person. It could be, you know, mistreating your younger sibling. It could be mistreating someone at work, at the new trainee at work who was just trying to learn. It could be any number of things, but I'm sensing that there is perhaps an injustice that has occurred from your hands in a past life. In a past life, in this lifetime. But, you know, no one's perfect. Don't beat yourself up for these things that have happened in the past. And that's why I love this tarot reading, because it looks at your past, but then also growth from the into the present and into the future. So it's just a prompting of reflection, so a little bit of self-reflection. So, present. When I'm President of the United States, I will create the Department of firing a rifle into the air while balls deep in a squealing hog. Okay. I'm feeling that, again, you're in a position of power. This references the President of the United States. You've got a lot of power. You've got the keys to the nukes. And again, I'm sensing, firing a rifle into the air. It's quite a daring, almost violent act. And also, you're defiling a hog at the same time. So again, I'm sensing that perhaps in the past where there's been that sort of stepping over the moral compass is demagnetized, and again, that's kind of what's happening in some capacity now. You've got power over someone or something, some situation, and you're being reckless about it, frankly. From what this card's saying, you're being quite reckless about it, and it's affecting other people. So hogs, that can be representative of humans as well, because pigs are very, very similar to humans in many ways. So, and you're deeply, deeply involved in this. And it can be potentially explosive as well. I'm seeing some very, very strong ramifications for this if this continues. So this question and answer duo is saying, hey, look at your actions, look at your words. Are you weaponizing your words? Are you using your power, your structural integrity correctly? Because I'm kind of sensing that that's perhaps not the case at the moment. We have to be very discerning with our power that we have and use it for good, as we perhaps, we were in the past. Batman, the symbol of morality. What have we become? Have we abused that power? So I'm actually gathering very, very strongly that the theme, and I've said it a lot this reading, the theme of this reading is power. So we need to evaluate what we're doing and the ripple effect of our actions on others. Because as a person with autonomy, with a great deal of autonomy, and whose actions affect the lives of others, what are your actions creating? Are they creating something explosive and that you're deeply involved in that affects others, and they don't seem to be too happy about it? Yeah, so that's a pretty strong indicator from the universe that we need to evaluate things. So I've taken a lot from that. But, we all have the opportunity to change things in the moment, the power of now. And it's never too late to change. So let's go into the future. What can we change now that will affect our future self? I'm sorry, Professor, but I couldn't complete my homework because of edible underpants. It's almost as if in the future you've lost a little bit of power, because I'm getting a strong sense of helplessness from this card. It's an excuse. I couldn't complete, you couldn't go through with an action that needed to be completed, perhaps a wavering in accountability here because of edible underpants. So underpants, the very action is to keep us covered, keep us, the vulnerable parts of us covered, because they're vulnerable areas. So I'm sensing there's vulnerability here. So we've sort of seen this trajectory here where if you've fallen off the moral horse, and perhaps in the present you're really off the moral horse, and perhaps there's some sort of redeemability here, but there is that sort of sense of you're not accountable, you're not owning up for your actions, but you're trying to, there is that, this is I wonder if, judging by the underpants, there is that sort of, you're covering some vulnerability, perhaps trauma. Perhaps there's been a trauma in your life, and the underpants representing vulnerability. Especially edible underpants, which are very, very flimsy. So there's that other added layer of vulnerability there. You know, they're not as structurally, they don't have that structural integrity that normal underpants do. So you couldn't do something because you're feeling vulnerable. And that vulnerability can lead to anxiousness, can lead to stress, can lead to roadblocks energetically in the body that prevent us from living our true selves, our true life. And I wonder if that vulnerability has come from our experiences of perhaps reflecting on our previous actions. So that is one way of framing it, but I think we need to harness that vulnerability. We need to embrace the vulnerability, because vulnerability is power. We can't let vulnerability or things we're worried about stop us from achieving our highest purpose, our highest goals in the hierarchy of needs. Vulnerability is strength. And I'm actually so thankful that this card has come up in the future, because that gives us something to aim for, because it's an evolution that these cards are demonstrating. And it almost seems because you're apologizing to a professor, now you're in a lower position. Perhaps you've been bumped off the pedestal that you've been on in the past and the present. And you've come right back down. And now you have to start from a place of vulnerability and exposing yourself to challenging situations where you have to perhaps appear stronger. You have to put on that facade, but to hide that vulnerability. But I think that's actually a beautiful evolution in self. And I couldn't be happier with the outcome. And I think that it shows us there is a moral compass within all of us. Sometimes it gets buried, sometimes it's a little bit haywire, but deep down, there is goodness in all of us. And nothing lasts forever, because we might have power in life. We might be up on, being CEO. We might be doing really well in a certain area, and nothing lasts forever. There is that saying that says, if something's going well, don't worry, it won't last. If something's going bad, don't worry, it won't last. So this reflects the transience of life and how quickly it can change. So, and there's an apology, there's a vulnerability in this, but there is that sort of lack of accountability, which I think being vulnerable, that's not a bad thing. We need to be vulnerable to others. That's actually quite, people like when people are vulnerable. It's appealing. It taps into our base humanity. And I think that if you need a little indication now to be kind to each other, take care of each other, respect each other, because if you're doing really well in a certain area, it might change overnight, and that is powerful. Okay, so I really, really hope that you've drawn a message of comfort from these cards. They're quite powerful cards. They definitely were very, very strong in their wording. And I think maybe it's telling us we need a bit of a rap over the knuckles. We need to start afresh. We need to be better people for the universe. And I think that to attain spiritual wellness, spiritual happiness, we need to be accountable. We need to show our vulnerability to others, because vulnerability is strength. As I said, it's not a weakness. We need to be vulnerable to others and realize we're all in this together. We're all equal. No one's better than anyone else. So take with that what you will. And I hope you've enjoyed today's reading. Be safe, my precious cherubs. And I do hope to see you next time for another tarot reading with Erin.